Power Rangers Universe, Episode 1, Powers from Beyond, Part 1. Written and narrated by Nathan Newport. Deep in a faraway universe never been discovered before, there lives a distant planet where there lived an ancient sorcerer known as the Morphing Master. He was the last of his kind, living peacefully on his planet for decades with no trouble coming about. We see him outside of his cottage home as we see him planting a unique-looking tree sprout amongst the dry desert area he lives in. There. Hopefully we could see a little bit more green out here, he says as he looks around where he lives, smiling knowing the future he has here. Until something disastrous came his way. He looks up into the sky to see a dark, disgusting cloud with a rusty but functional-looking space pod approaching to land. "Oh no," he said. "I fear the day that they will come here." In fear, he races to the inside of his cottage. As the space pod lands, we see that it has a symbol on it, on one of its wings. It's the mark of the evil race of aliens known as the pollutos. They have come to this planet in search of a great and powerful source. When the Morphing Master enters his cottage, he grabs his strapped bag and stops at an entrance before entering. He says, "Immobilize," as he waves his staff and deactivates something in the cave. "Now I can go into the crystal chamber safe," he says. He enters to walk down towards the end of the cave, where we see 5 different shaped and colored gemstones hovering and circling each other. The star gems. Created by the powers of the universe, the star gems wield a great power that can defeat any evil that tries to possess it. "Come with me," he says. "We must get going." Speaking to the gems as they hover their way towards his hand, they land in his hand and he puts them in his handkerchief, which he then puts into his bag. He exits the chamber, and after he exits, he then activates whatever was in the cave. "Reactivate," he says. "Okay, I must be going now." Knowing that the universe would be in trouble, the Morphing Master was chosen to guard the star gems from anyone who would use them for evil. Now that the pollutos have conquered every planet they've been to, he must now make a journey to find new guardians to protect the star gems. "I will miss this place," he says, as he exits his cottage. As he left his cottage and was about to make his journey, a squadron of lime tentacle-faced aliens known as galactic creeps start swarming around him. "Oh no," he says in a worried tone. "Galactic creeps!" Until they were called off by their leader. He was a red alien wearing goggles and was wearing a black hood on a commander jacket. His name was Commander EXO, and alongside of him was his second-in-command, Spike. He was a bulked magenta-colored alien with spikes on his head and 3 spikes on each side of his arms, and was wearing a bodysuit with a Polluto's crest on his chest and was holding a hammer in his left hand. "So, you must be the Morphing Master," said EXO, questioning what he thought would be a threat. "I believe you have something I want," he proclaims. "Where are the star gems?" he asks unpleasantly. "I don't know what you're talking about," said the Morphing Master, answering to him unkindly. "How dare you talk to him like that?" said Spike, frustrating him, as EXO puts his hand up to him and signals him to step back and calm down. "I will ask you one more time," he answers politely. "Where are the star gems?" he asks. "I'm not going to tell you," he replies. Commander EXO says, "Fine, have it your way then." He snaps his fingers, signaling the galactic creeps to attack him, but the Morphing Master fights back at them, taking them out one by one. He charges at Exo trying to attack him, but gets hit by Spite, causing him to backflip and land flat down on the ground. "Foolish sorcerer," Spite said. "You're no match against us," he replies with self-confidence. "If he won't tell us where they are, then he is no use for us," says Commander Exo. "Destroy him," he signals to Spite, which he replies with, "My pleasure." He raises his hammer in the air, hoping to crush him. But before he could do so, the Morphing Master yells, "No! Wait!" "The gems," he breathes heavily. "They're in my cottage, in a crystal chamber." With the light, Commander Exo says, "Good. I knew you would come through. But unfortunately, you know too much, and therefore, you're coming with us. Spite, take him to the ship and put him with the others." "Yes, Commander," Spite replies. Spite grabs the sorcerer's arm and takes him to the space pod that's ready to take off to the ship. All the while, Exo heads into the cottage to find the star gems. "That old fool said that the star gems would be in this cottage," he says. Exo inspects the cottage and searches for the star gems, which he then realizes that the gems are in the crystal chamber, which he then discovers. As he enters the chamber, he notices that there are white crystals covering the walls of the cave. "Well, this is definitely the crystal chamber," he says. As he keeps walking further into the chamber, Exo sees one of the crystals fall off the wall, which had then turned flashing red. It was then he realizes that it's not just some ordinary crystal. It was a detonation crystal, and it was about to blow up. And unfortunately for him, he is surrounded in a cave full of them. "Wait! That mangy wizard tricked me!" he says, yelling out, "No!" A huge explosion erupts, destroying the cottage with Exo inside of it, and as Spite was about to take off in a space pod along with the Morphing Master, he hears the explosion and looks at the wreckage of what's left of the now destroyed cottage, and panics knowing that Exo was inside and that he was under that rubble losing his life. "Impossible," he says to himself, questioning about the event that occurred. "He can't be destroyed. He just can't be." With Spite still in shock of the whole situation, the Morphing Master sneaked up behind him and kicked him out of the space pod. With the space pod in his possession, the Morphing Master turns it on as it begins to hover up into the atmosphere. "Now to make my journey to find a new generation of Guardians," he says as he flies off. He takes off in the space pod, leaving what was left of his old home to go off into deep space in search for the universe's next hope of heroes. We then come upon the planet Ariatan, a planet similar to our home Earth. We then go further into the planet to see what appears to be a farmhouse, except it has a barn that looks a little futuristic. This is all owned by fellow Ariatan locals who are a husband and wife, and they also have a daughter and an adopted son. Inside the house were the husband and wife sitting down at their kitchen table, where they saw their daughter all dressed up and ready to head out. "Morning, Mom," said Paige, greeting to her. "Morning, Paige." "Morning, Dad." "Morning, honey," his dad replied back. "Okay, I'll be hanging out into town and I'll see all of you later," Paige said. As she opened the door, she was about to step out of the house until her mom said, "Hold it." Paige stops and turns her head to her mom. "Why don't you bring Corey along with you? I think it's about time he had a visit into town," she says. "I'm sorry, what?" Confused about what she heard. "You heard what she said," said her dad. "He's never been outside of the ranch before. I think it's about time he got to take a look at the outside world," said her mom. "But why do I have to take him to town?" said Paige. "I'm only going there because we need supplies for the barn." As she argues that it's not going to be much of a trip, Paige's dad then said, And you will. Besides, when we first found him all alone with no one to take care of him, you promised to help us take care of him, he says to her almost as if he's playing a guilt card. That's when I was 10 years old, and I didn't have any responsibilities back then. Now I have even more responsibilities. And with him around, that's just gonna add more weight on my shoulders, she says in a frustrated tone. Well, it's better to have someone who's willing to help lift the weight of your shoulders than adding more of it, said her mom. Realizing that her mother was right and had a very good point, Paige said, "All right, I'll take him to town." Her parents smile at her, thinking that she made the right decision. "Good," said her mom. "Trust me, sweetie, this will be great for both of you," said her dad. Paige smiles at them as she goes out with a disappointed look on her face. Paige steps out of the house and then walks on over to the barn to get Corey, since he spends most of his time there. He practically sleeps in the barn most of the time. She enters the barn to find Corey was sleeping in the workshop section of the barn. She walks over there to wake Corey up. "Corey." She tries waking him up gently by shaking his left shoulder and saying his name quietly. "Corey!" she yells at him, which causes Corey to wake up. "What? I'm awake!" He looks at Paige, confused and tired. "Oh, hey Paige. Guess I slept in here again last night," he said, humoring himself while yawning. "So, is breakfast ready?" he asks her due to him being hungry. "That's not why I came out here for, Corey," she said to him. "What's going on?" he asked her, wondering. "Get dressed. We're heading to town." "Wait, what?" he asked confusingly but excitingly. "I'm actually going with you into town?" "Just for today," she said. "Now get dressed." They both head out of the barn and back into the house. "All right," he says with excitement, as Paige has a negative look on her face, saying, "I'm already regretting this." Meanwhile in space, the Morphing Master was at high speed in a space pod, traveling away from what's behind him. Then from out of nowhere comes the rusty-looking UFO with big, gigantic tentacle claws right behind his space pod. "Oh no, they found me," he says frightenedly, realizing that it was the Polluto ship. While on the Polluto ship, in the command deck, we see the galactic creeps at the control consoles ready to fire at the rogue space pod. "That sorcerer thinks he can get away so easily with those star gems. He has another thing coming," said Spite in such anger. "Lasers ready. Aim. Fire!" They fire the lasers, which hit the space pod, causing it to lose control. "Oh no, I'm going down," he says in fright. The space pod starts spinning around, heading towards Aritan. Back on Aritan, we see Corey and Paige walking towards the city side of Aritan, where we see tall buildings along with magnificent sci-fi architecture. Aside from that, there's also some trees and plant life, similar to Earth, but also some plant life that you don't see on Earth. "Well, Corey, I welcome you to the city of Aritan," said Paige, introducing him to the city. "Whoa," said Corey. "This is so cool. I never thought this place would be so big." "Well, stay close to me so you don't get lost easily, okay?" Paige asks Corey to confirm, in which he responds, "Got it." They walk into the city plaza where they're looking for the exact store they need to shop at. "Okay, I know that the hardware store should be around here somewhere," she says, looking around. Paige says, looking around the plaza. While she is distracted, Corey sees a shop that he immediately goes to. The shop was called Auto Space Auto, and as he walks inside, he sees that the store was filled with different automobile parts. He then looked at what appeared to be a dirt bike that hovered. "Whoa, that's so cool," he says as he was about to touch the handlebars. Hey! He was then stopped by one of the store employees named Silas. If you want that, you're going to have to pay for it, he says to Corey, explaining how currency works. Sorry, I don't have anything to pay, said Corey. Well, I guess you're out of luck, said Silas, because I built this thing myself. Really? Said Corey. Oh yeah, every part and vehicle in this place was made by me, as he was about to continue his story. Silas! His boss comes out from the back room, upset at Silas that he isn't working. Why aren't you working? Said Otto. There's so much to get done, he says to Silas, frustrated. I hear you. I'll get right on, Otto, said Silas. Otto leaves the room, giving Silas relief that he's gone. Silas, realizing that he should know everyone who goes in and out of the plaza, asks who he was. By the way, I don't think I've seen you before in town, said Silas. Oh, this is my first time in town, said Corey. Well, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Silas. He puts out his hand for a handshake, hoping that he shakes it. Corey, nice to meet you. They both shake hands, and Paige walks in to find Corey wondering where he was. There you are. I told you to stay close to me, she said. Silas, recognizing who Paige is, asks Corey, Wait, are you friends with Paige? Corey then responds with, Actually, she's my sister. Silas has a surprised look on his face. Paige then tells him about the relationship between her and Corey. Not really. He's an orphan, said Paige. Me and my parents found him alone when he was 10 years old. Wow, said Silas, shocked how Corey had a rough childhood. But it's nothing to worry about, said Corey. Even though I have no idea who my real family are and why they left me, I'm still happy that I still have a home, said Corey as he put his arm around Paige's shoulder, showing his love, leaving Silas smiling a little bit. Well, as much as I would like to chat, said Paige, we have errands to run, so bye, she says as she grabs Corey's arm and heads out of the store. Nice talking to you, Corey, said Silas as Corey waved goodbye to him. Now maybe this time you'll stay close to me and not get lost again, said Paige, making sure Corey understands not to goof around. Oh, trust me, he said. I won't get lost this time, he says to her, trying to gain trust with her. Then he sees a building and is about to go straight towards it with a look of interest, until Paige grabbed his arm and kept him straight on the path they were supposed to go on. What did I just say? Said Paige, questioning him. I wasn't actually going to the building, said Corey. Sure you weren't, she said with sarcasm. We then take a look at the building that Corey was looking at earlier. The building was a base camp for recruits who signed up for an elite force known as the Galactic Protectors. Their job is to serve and protect our universe from any intergalactic threats. And right now, one of the people who signed up to be recruited is waiting in the admissions office to have a chat with the base camp's head counselor. Ross, said the secretary. Yes? Colonel Argonaut is ready to see you, said the secretary. Ross steps out of his chair and heads into Colonel Argonaut's office, where we see the colonel sitting at his desk waiting for Ross to enter. Ross. Colonel Argonaut. Ross salutes to the colonel as he salutes back. Have a seat, son, said Colonel Argonaut. Ross then takes a seat in front of his desk. So I've taken a look at your file. Seems that your test results have come back pretty positive on the physical training exercises. I'd say you did pretty well when it comes to preparing for physical missions, said Colonel Argonaut. Thank you, sir, Ross says in response to his compliments. However, your IQ test results seem to show otherwise, said Colonel Argonaut. Come again, sir? He asked the colonel, questioning the results. It bears to say this to you, son. Even though you are capable in physical challenges, it's challenges that test your mind, however, that seems to be your downfall. I don't know what to say, sir, he says while trying to understand how he could have failed. I'm finding this hard to believe. Tell me, Ross, Why did you want to do this in the first place? The Colonel asks Ross. Ever since I've heard about the battles that have happened throughout the universe as a kid, I was worried that our home would be next on the list. So I promised myself to my parents and to my friends that I will stand up to protect our home and the entire universe to go up against any being that decides to do what's wrong. After hearing Ross's story, the Colonel has a look of gratefulness on his face. Wow, Ross. That's very inspirational. As much as that story is heartwarming, I'm afraid to say you don't have what it takes to be a part of the Galactic Protectors, he says to Ross as he has a disheartened look on his face. I'm gonna have to ask you to pack your things and leave the base camp, he says to Ross, in which he replies, Yes, sir. He accepts his order, saluting to him, even though he is still upset with his decision. Meanwhile, we cut back to Corey and Paige, still running for errands, but Corey stops to ask if they have everything. So, is this everything that we need? He asks Paige. No, not everything. We still need to go to one more place to buy a couple of more items, she says to Corey, who has a look of boredom on his face. While heading to the next store for her last list of items, Paige sees her friend Liza just coming back from her job at the local planetarium. Hey Paige, she says, waving at Paige. Hey Liza. They meet up with each other to chat a little. Running errands? Liza asks Paige, in which she responds, As always. Liza then takes a look at Corey, wondering who he was. Is this who I think it is? Liza asks Paige. Liza, meet Corey. Corey, this is Liza. Nice to meet you, said Corey. Same here, said Liza. Paige just told me a lot about you, she says to him, making Corey feel happy. So can I help you guys out? I just finished my shift, she says, asking Paige. That'd be great, Paige says, feeling relieved to have help from someone else other than Corey. Come on, let's go. All three of them head off into the next store to get the list of supplies they need. Back on the Polluto ship, we see Spythe in the command deck talking to one of the ship's crew members named Komodo Drone. He is an alien lizard with robotic body parts, and he is one of the best fighters in the universe. Now with that space pod shut down and heading to the nearby planet, that morphing master will have nowhere to run, said Spythe. That's where you come in, Komodo Drone. Take an army of galactic creeps along with you on your trip to the planet Ariatan. Once you're there, find the sorcerer, get the star gems, and destroy him for good. Yes, sir. I'll make sure he won't survive, he says while laughing maniacally, leaving the command deck where Spythe says to himself, I promise you, Commander, you shall have your revenge. Back on Ariatan, it was almost getting dark at the plaza. Corey and Paige were done with their errands with Liza along to help them. Well, that seems to be everything on the list, said Paige. We better get back home before it gets really dark soon. Yeah, good idea, said Corey. Hey, thanks again for letting me help. It always feels nice helping others out, said Liza with a little bit of joy. Don't mention it, said Paige. Then out of nowhere, they heard something in the sky. It was something that was coming in fast that was about to crash land. What is that? Paige asks the others. It looks like a meteor, Corey says in response. That's impossible. Our planet is nowhere near any meteor fields, Liza says, expressing her vast knowledge of space. So what do you think it is? Asks Paige. I don't know about you, but I'm going to find out, Corey says to them as he puts down some bags and heads off into the direction the mysterious object was heading. Corey, get back here! Paige yells at him, trying to get his attention. Great, just when I thought he couldn't get into trouble, said Paige, shaking her head no. Come on. Where are we going? Liza asks Paige. We're going after Corey, come on. They both head off after Corey to try to get him back. Meanwhile, Ross exits out of the base camp building with all of his stuff until he sees the same thing Corey, Paige, and Liza saw earlier. He drops his stuff and heads off after it, wondering what's going on. Then we see Silas at the back of Otto's Space Auto, dumping out some outdated equipment into the trash. He then sees the same unfamiliar object in the sky. Then comes Corey running straight to it with Paige and Liza right behind him. "Hey guys, where are you going?" he asks them, wondering what they're up to. "Guys!" He tries to get their attention, but instead follows them. The object crash lands near an abandoned site. Seeing that it has crash landed, the group stops to see what it was. "It's about time we stop." "What were you thinking, Corey?" she says in a frustrated tone. "You can't just run off on your own." "Well, I wasn't going to just stand around wondering what it was," Corey said. "Well, congratulations. You got a close-up of what it was. Now, let's go," she says while grabbing the arm. But Liza stops her to get their attention. "Guys, wait. It's opening." The hatch opens up with steam coming out. "What is that thing?" Silas said. "It looks like..." Just when Silas was about to finish his sentence, Ross cuts him off. "A space pod." "Ah!" said Silas, who was frightened. "Where'd you come from?" Silas asks after being scared by him. "I was standing right here the whole time," said Ross, answering him honestly. "I'm sorry, who are you?" Silas asks, still wondering who he was. "Guys," Corey says to them as he signals that something or someone was coming out of the space pod, and it turns out to be the Morphing Master, who was very hurt. "Help me, please." The group rushes over to help him out of the space pod and rested him beside a stack of metal pallets. "What happened to you?" Liza asks him, wanting to know what's going on. "I was trying to escape from them." "Them?" Silas says, concerning tone. "They are known as the Pollutos, an evil race of aliens who come to different planets for one purpose: to search and destroy. They take everything away from you, then they leave and destroy planets, causing the universe to pollute, which will lead to mass destruction." "Sounds like these guys are no joke," Ross says in response to the Pollutos' ways. "They then came to my planet in search of a great power," the Morphing Master says as he pulls out a handkerchief from his bag. And inside the handkerchief were the star gems. "These are the star gems. Formed by my fellow Morphing Masters, the star gems possess the powers of the universe and can be used in the hands of those who are truly good. If those who are evil try to get their hands on these, all hope will be lost for the entire universe." The teenagers look at each other with concerned looks on their faces, as the Morphing Master continues saying, "I was lucky enough to escape, but now they are coming to your planet to take the star gems away from me. And once they have the star gems, they will destroy not just me, but your planet and everyone along with it." "They can't do that," said Corey in frustration. "I mean, there has to be a way to stop this." Then out of nowhere comes Komodo Drone and a swarm of galactic creeps. "There is no way. The universe is doomed." "What is that thing?" Paige asks in concern. "It's one of the Pollutos monsters. They're here for me," said the Morphing Master. "Indeed we are. Now stop wasting our time. Hand over the sorcerer, and we'll let you live," he says, trying to persuade them. "How we know you're not lying?" Liza asks, trying to prove he's bad. "You don't. Now hand him over," Komodo Drone says impatiently. Then Corey stands up and stands in front of the Morphing Master. "You want him? You're gonna have to go through me," Corey says with confidence. Then all of a sudden, the rest of them decide to do the same. "He's right. You mess with him, then you mess with us," right? Paige asks the other three who are joining, to which they respond, Right. You got that right. In a frustrated tone, Komodo Drone says, Fine, I'll destroy all of you. He fires an energy bolt through his robotic arm at them. They duck for cover until the energy bolt is deflected by a force field that appeared out of nowhere. What? Komodo Drone says in annoyance at what just happened. The 5 teenagers look up at each other to see that they aren't destroyed, leaving Liza to ask them. What just happened? I don't know, said Corey, because he doesn't know what happened. But in the back, the Morphing Master says, They chose you. What? Corey says in confusion. The Star Gems. They've chosen you. They all look at each other with confusion, wondering why 5 stones would choose them. Enough of this, Komodo Drone says furiously. Get them! Galactic creeps start charging at them. Back off, Corey says while kicking one of them, causing the whole swarm, including Komodo Drone, to fall down. Come on, let's get you out of here, he says to the Morphing Master, as the others help him out so he can move him away from the already fallen down group of bad guys. Get off of me, you tentacle-faced bozo, Komodo Drone said in anger. Silas then asked Corey, what do we do? He said in a worried tone. We have to get him to safety away from them. Come on. While they still run away with the Morphing Master, Komodo Drone pushes one of the galactic creeps off of him and gets up off the ground. Great! They're gone! He says, complaining to the galactic creeps. Get up, you idiots! Search the area and find them! He says, yelling at them while they shake their heads in agreement. We won't leave until we have those gems, even if that means we have to destroy everything in sight. To be continued. End of episode 1.